This lesson, we're comparing numbers. So we're saying which one's bigger and which one's smaller. Now, in my experience, the symbol for showing greater than or less than, you know the one, the symbol goes like this or like this. That symbol can sometimes be confusing for students. Now, over our years, we have different ways of explaining this. I've heard of people talking about the alligator eating the bigger number or Pac-Man eating the bigger number. This book has a fish that eats the bigger number. So, for example, the symbol for this one is going to be this. And so they talk about this as being a fish. Excuse my wonderful artistic. But the fish is going to want to eat the bigger thing because it's hungry. So it wants to eat the bigger number. So then the fish mouth is going to be open to the bigger number. Same thing over here. I want the fish mouth to be open to the bigger number. Okay, so that's one way to talk about it. So if they're confused, you can talk about the fish mouth. The thing I like to look at is the actual shape itself is telling you exactly what you want. See, the height of the shape on this side is really tall. Look at that. It's pretty tall. But the height of it on this side is really, really short. It's really, really small. So the small number goes on the small side. The big number goes on the big side. So we've got our small side here and we've got our big side here. And so it matches up with the size of the number. Okay, but we need to be able to use this. And so in the circle, you'll see we have two numbers and they have a circle. And in that circle, we're supposed to put the correct shape, whether it's greater than or less than. And it's always a good idea to talk about not just how the shape goes, but the name of the shape, less than or greater than. And so there's a couple different ways your book talks about doing this. One is looking at the picture of these. And so what did they have for 1,000? That's kind of a weird drawing. For 1,000, it looks like they take a block and make it look like a long stick. So for 3,000, it looks like they do something like this to talk about 3,000. My guess is it's like you're saying that you have 10, squares put together to make a block, and then you have 100. And then you have 70, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then you have 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's 3,176. And then on the other one, we've got 3,000. So we've got three long big blocks there. 100. And then you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then 2 units. Okay, and so as we start comparing, we always want to start from the biggest. So you can start saying, okay, let's look at our biggest spot, the 3,000s, and do either of them have more of those? And you say they have the same number. So far, they're the same size. So then we go to the 100 spot. And so we say, okay, here's 100 and here's 100. They have the same amount. So we need to go to the next one, the 10 spot. This one has 7 and this one has 8. This one has more. Therefore, this number is bigger, so the fish has to eat that number. So the fish is going to eat that number. So that's one way to do this, is to draw it out and talk about each individual spot that way, comparing the drawings from the biggest part of the place value to the smallest until you find one that's bigger. The other way to do this is to write the two numbers on top of each other. So I've got, I need a pen. I've got 3176, and I've got 3182. So I'm writing them right on top of each other. And then I start on the very left and I circle them and I say, okay, are they the same or are they different? And we say, well, they're the same. So then we move on and I circle the next place value and those are the same too. And then I circle the next place value, and the circles just help them focus in on which one you're talking about. And I look and I say, oh gosh, 7 is smaller than 8. So that means this number up here is going to be smaller than this number up here. So then I have to make sure the fish is eating the bigger number. Okay, so that's just two different ways. You can do the picture, or you can just line them up, and lining them up is important. Line them up and circle each place value to see how they are. Okay, another thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to be ordering numbers. And so once again, we're going to start by looking at place values. So I wrote them right on top of each other. You'll notice at the bottom here, I have 3 lines because I have 1, 2, 3 numbers. So I need to put them biggest to smallest. Okay, and just because that's how I'm told to write it from least or biggest to smallest. So you have to, of course, look at what it says. It might say from least to greatest. It might say from greatest to least. So it all just depends on which one you're doing. Okay, so again, one thing you might want to stress is always start with the bigger number. So I start with the one, or the thousands, I should say, and they're all the same. So then I move on, and then I have the hundreds. And I notice that the top two are the same, but the bottom one has a bigger number. So that must be my biggest number. So I have 1,637 is my biggest number. Okay, now you have a choice. You can cross it off, which I would suggest, or you can just altogether rewrite it and start over again. Okay, now I'm not going to use that number anymore. I'm going to go to the tens. I'm going to circle those. And I notice, oh, that the 8 is bigger than the 4. That must mean that the one with the 8 in it, the 1,580, is bigger than the other one. So I can cross that one off. And I really only have one number left, so that one goes last. That's going to be my smallest number. Okay, so this is how you order numbers and go through, and again, line them up, start from the biggest. One of the biggest mistakes people make or students make is that they start from the smallest, and you always want to start from the biggest in comparing and in ordering. Now, the next thing we want to do is sometimes you have a multi-step problem. And so we want to compare, we want to answer the question they asked. So it says Tim has 36 baseball cards and 29 football cards. Pilar has 24 baseball cards and 38 football cards. Who has more cards? So we can't just look at the numbers as they are. We're going to have to look at a combination because we're talking about two different cards, baseball and football, but we don't know how many they have all together. So we need to write that down. So let's see, we'll put Tim on the left, so 36, and we're going to add together because we're putting them together. I'm going to put the word Tim above just to give myself something to know who that was. And I'm supposed to compare that to Pilar, who has 24 plus 38. Okay, so that's Pilar. Now, you go through adding. So this is, of course, something you can work off on the side. It's always good to show your work. So we have 36 plus 29. It's a good review of what we've done in the past. So 6 and 9 make 15. 3 and 2 and 1 make 6. So Tim has 65. And Pilar has 24 plus 38. Add those together. 8 and 4 is 12. Carry our tens. 3, 2, and 1 makes 62. All right, so if we compare these, in the 10 spot, they both have the same, and in the 1 spot, Tim has more, so that must mean Tim has more cards altogether. Okay, so Tim has more cards. Of course, if you needed to, you could line them up, and it all depends on how well they understand it. If they don't get it the way I did it up here, then try lining it up and saying, okay, let's circle the 10s, they're the same. Circle the 1s, the 5 is more than 2, so that must mean 65 is more than 62. All right, the next thing to do is to look at, using our number sense. Like I've said before, number sense is one of the things our students are worst at and weakest at, I should say, in test scores. So one of the things we want to do is get them talking about a problem, talk about why they think something's true. And so this one is actually not meant to be even written down. It's just to understand, and maybe it'll say an explanation of why you think so. So here it says Tim and Gail each have 10 apples. So they started out with the same amount, and that's important. Tim gives 4 apples away, and Gail picks 4 more apples. Who has more apples? So I'm not asking you to actually do the math of 10 plus 4 and 10 minus 4. I'm asking you to say, oh, they started with the same amount. Tim gave away, so he has less. Gail added to hers, so she has more. So it's going to be Gail. Gail has more apples because she added to hers where Tim took his away, and they started with the same amount, which is, of course, important that they started with the same amount. Okay, so you want to talk about this. Get them to explain why they came up with the answer they came up with, not just the Gail. Okay, another one is to look at how you would know something. So you have 143 plus 68. And the question is it more or less than 200? And we're not necessarily saying, hey, add them together and see that you actually get, 211. The problem is just looking at it, can you estimate it and figure out if it's more or less than 200? So when I look at this, I'm estimating this to be 140, this to be 70. So when I add those together, well, 140 plus just the 60 makes 200. So this is definitely going to be more because 140 plus 60 is 200, and I've got bigger numbers than that. So if they're bigger than stuff that already makes 200, then they're going to be more than 200. Okay, the next question is 96 plus 71 more or less than 200? And here, both of these are less than 100. And I know that 100 plus 100 makes 200. But if these are both less than 100, there's no way you're going to get more than 200, so it definitely has to be less than 200. Again, this is a place where you could do math talk and they can explain why they think it's more or less. And the more we do that, the better they're going to become. The better math thinkers they become, the better students they become. And in the future, this stuff will get a lot easier.